MDGs, the Annual Development Goals, are the following: gender issues, disability issues, and access to education, especially MDG, what I told you before, partnership, is a very, very important goal of our work. TAFISA's efforts in Sport for All has demonstrated the potential and power to unify and bridge the gaps between cultures and countries, elite sport and sport for all, the private sector and sport for all, traditional, as we saw in the film, and modern sports, sports science and practice. We commend TAFISA on the VIPS program, the volunteer program, and its promotion of universal values as a foundation such as the free will, commitment, engagement, and solidarity, issues that are the basis for both volunteering and democratic development. This initiative is an excellent example, and I will tell you some minutes later about our own initiative in the same way. As a driving force to raise awareness, education and engagement for volunteerism and social change. Sport, especially sport for all projects, are recognized tools to contribute to development, social change and long-term sustainability. Sport for development and peace is recognized as a relevant component of the work conducted by UN organizations. Why sport? By its very nature, sport can be inclusive and can promote social integration and economic development. If the initiatives are well prepared, organized, and tailored to local groups and conditions, through the unique power of sport to attract, mobilize, and inspire. Sport can transcend borders, gender, religion, and politics. Sport can promote positive values of fair play, tolerance, trust, discipline, leadership, teamwork, and respect for others. Sport is a wonderful medium to transmit valuable knowledge and information. By all these means, sport has become a crucial instrument in international development and peace. As a special advisor, it is my role to communicate, foster, and support this potential of sport for development and peace. And as I was asked yesterday at the reception, what is your mandate about? Nobody knows what is a special advisor to you and the Secretary General. I explained it yesterday and I will repeat it this morning because there are so many friends from different groups all over the world. I see three pillars under my mandate. First of all, I have to be a representative of the United Nations in the field of sport. That's the reason why I got this invitation to tell you something about how we understand, how we use sport in a positive way for development and peace. The second is I have to be an advocate. That means, for example, I think the majority of the organized governments in the United Nations don't think that sport is important. Brian said that before, and I will repeat it later on. They are not interested in physical education. They don't want to spend money for sport. They say, no, this is luxury. We don't want to support this in a very effective way. But this is one very concrete thing that we have to foster this and to promote sports in all parts of the world. Finally, I have to be a facilitator. If there are some conflict between media, federations, governments or so, I like to help, but fortunately that doesn't happen very often. In the last 3 years, I think 1 or 2 cases where I try to help. But what is wonderful for me, coming from the sport and working since 45 years in the field of sport, to bring people together from very poor countries, from very poor projects, bring them together with foundations, governments, and NGOs who are working in this field. This is the best thing in my work. And you may know that my overall objective is to bring the world of sport ministries, the Olympic movement, sport federations, and the world of development, UN agencies, ministries, NGOs, academics, media and the private sector together, closer together. And that's the reason why I spoke this morning about partnership, bringing people together, building a network. And so, in my work, I have defined 5 specific priorities. Africa. Why Africa? Sub-Saharan Africa, Ban Ki-moon, when I started my job 3.5 years ago, Ban Ki-moon said, listen, Mr. Limke, Africa is the most suffering continent. Do all what you can to use sport as a tool for development and peace in this wonderful but very, very suffering continent. This is the first priority. Then I visited several times Africa, and I visited very different sport projects. And there are many very positive examples, but also many examples that I wouldn't follow. But it is necessary that we duplicate the good examples and forget the bad ones. And when I went to Africa, I was very much surprised that there are thousands, maybe 10,000 of wonderful young men and women, aged between maybe 16 to 30 years old, coming from a very poor background. You cannot believe that they grew up in slums, never had a good education, and then work in the field of sport, full of enthusiasm, working with kids, very poor kids, with having no equipment, but doing a very good job. And then I said, this must be the second priority of my work at the UN, to foster their very difficult job. I find Sam, in your country and the north of Joburg, initiative or project, there were some of 20 young men and women, and they work with the kids twice a week, and they get $20 US for that in a month. $20 a month for working twice a week with kids in the field of sport. And they did a fantastic job. And so I think, listen, I want to foster them, give them vocational training, want to invite them to special camps. And this is the second priority. I will speak about gender. Gender is very important all over the world, and it is so important to foster the power of women worldwide, also in the field of sport, to give them chances, to show them that there has to be equality between men and women, and you can use sport. Fourth priority is sport for persons with disability. As Brian said before, I worked nearly 19 years in professional football, so I know exactly this side of the medal. But I've never been close to sport for all activities in the field of sport for persons with disabilities. And I was so happy when somebody told me what is the result and the legacy of the Olympic Games in Beijing, Walter and Sam. I would immediately say, listen, in the moment when the Chinese got the bid, and they won the bid, they know there will be this wonderful Olympic Games in 2008. But in the same moment, they know, due to the fact that the partnership is so good between IOC and the IPC, that they will have to organize the Paralympics. And from that moment on, the houses of the families opened, and they let their children with disabilities out on the street. And this is such a wonderful legacy of the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games of Beijing. And when I saw the athletes, and I would like to include also Special Olympics, because they are doing such a good job. This is just the competitions for persons with intellectual disabilities. And if you join this, and if you see that, I personally have to say, we have to foster the media to promote this kind of sport the same. Always when I speak to in congresses like this, I say, listen, don't let these persons with disabilities out of the society. Bring them into the middle, into the center of the society. Let them feel that we are one family. And finally, the fifth priority, not far away from here. Well, I think maybe 1 hour by plane, you will find the biggest conflict in the world between Palestine people and the Israelis. And when we had the conflict in Gaza, I read a quote of Boutros Ghali, the former Secretary General, and he said, if we don't take care of the children in Gaza, you will see that in the next decade there will be grown-up people that will have suicide, that will be the next suicide generation in that area. And he said, we all, as a one UN family, have to stop that development. And we have to give all people in the region, both sides, never look only on one side. Ever you discuss this, you have to understand both sides. But use sport as a small step for development and peace in that region. So this is my fifth priority. And when I mentioned the volunteer aspect, that is very near to my second priority to engage myself for young leaders. I want to mention that we have a youth leadership, the first youth leadership camp in Doha, the capital of Qatar. And I'm very, very pleased my friends from Qatar are already also here, and I really welcome their support and their help. We invited some of them, 13 of this NGOs and of these NGOs, where they were, and we invited them for a vocational training to Doha. 10 days they got vocational training. And then coming back to the women part of society, I said to my colleagues in my office in Geneva, listen, we have the gender aspect, and you have to make sure that 50% of the participants will be women, have to be women. Because whenever I go around the world, and it starts in the big governments of the world, to the IOC, to the federations, the FIFA executive committee has no women in that. There are only men. And so I'm quite sure that if we count out, there will be maybe 20%, 25% of female participants in this Congress. But what I said, make sure 50-50. And then I got a call from Geneva, Mr. Limke, we have a problem. I said, what kind of problem do we have? Yeah, the Doha camp, we have 18 participants to 12. Oh, I think that's not possible. You know the gender aspect of the Millennium Development Goals. Make sure that it's 50-50. I said, you misunderstood. We have criteria, qualifications, and we found out that we have 18 women and only 12 men. I said, bravo, that's good, well done. Because I'm quite sure this is what we know from history, that finally there will be 15 and 15. But I'm very proud, and I think it is normal, and I don't have to be proud of it, but it is possible. And whenever you go to such camp, please make sure that always there have been 50% participants female and 50 male. Make it sure, be very strong with this, otherwise you will see 90%, 80% boys, and only 10 or 20% women. And we have to foster women and girls' power in the world. We have, or I want to quote at this moment a very strong leader of international sport. That's our good friend, IOC President John Moore. And he said, sport brings people together. Togetherness leads to dialogue. Dialogue leads to mutual understanding, and mutual understanding leads to respect, friendship, and peace. And it's so easy for all of us to do it day by day, bringing people together, even in the biggest conflict areas. Margaret Allen, the president of IXPE, was together with us in a big congress in Israel some weeks ago now. And there we had a very, very good collaboration between our office and the IXPE office. Because I said, listen, if you go in these days to Israel, you should also try to include the Palestine side, to join this, to be part of it. And then we found out that it was very, very difficult. The Palestine side get an invitation. They said no, as long as there are settlements, we will not go and take part. And then we are not satisfied by this answer. We said, then we have to do something additional to the Congress in Israel. And then finally we made a very smart decision, and that shows the power of sports. And I can tell you, politics are not able to work so flexible that we did. And then we decided, okay, we will send a delegation to Ramallah. And that was fantastic. The responsible leader there, General Rajoub, invited us in his private house for a lunch, and we discussed his problems. In the evening, we were sitting together with the Israeli sports minister, discussing their point of view. And now we are working on bringing both sides to Europe, some place to discuss the problem on the scientific, on the academic way, to prepare the next steps of development and peace in that area. And please, please, forget people who say these are only small steps or just some drops of water on a hot stone. That's a German saying. No, whenever my wife or some friends tell me, oh, you're going to that place and that place, these are only small drops. Forget them and tell them that everybody of us has to do a small step, a small drop, because then it will be someday a small river, finally a big river going to a big ocean. So this is my address or my keynote speaking. Building bridges through sports is necessary, and please remember, we are all one family. Stay together, work hard, day by day. Thank you so much.